When was the last time you've been happy? Was it days ago? Maybe weeks, months, years? Happiness becomes such a distant feeling when depression is all you've ever felt. At first, it started with a feeling of sadness, shedding a few tears here and there when things didn't go your way. Or maybe you got betrayed by someone you call your best friend, or maybe simply because life itself got tougher. Then something horrible happens, and before you know it, this sadness becomes a part of you, feeling it every single moment of every day, wondering when exactly did you lose control over your emotions. We ask ourselves, out of all the people in the world, why did we have to be the ones who had to experience all of the bad things we went through? Depression is, and always will be, a problem many people have to deal with. Some are lucky enough to go on about their lives without feeling constant dread, while some persistently feel like there's a hole in their chest. Those who never experienced it often tell you to just stop being sad, saying that there's so much in life that you should be happy about, to be grateful for, that you're alive. But how can we even be happy about that when just living itself is painful? People sympathize, but they don't empathize. They tell us words that would supposedly help us, but all those words do is patronize and invalidate how we feel, because empathy comes from trying to understand and share the feelings of another. So how can they when they don't know what it's like? It's hard to make people understand, especially when everyone else around you are living happy lives. What's worse is we would start to think that we're the ones in the wrong feeling that way, and that we should just get a hold of ourselves and keep our heads up. We become our own worst enemy, and we start to put others ahead before ourselves. It's an endless loop of putting yourself down and shoving your feelings aside, while we fester in misery and self-pity. So how? How can we stop feeling so depressed and lifeless, if there even is a way? There's a character from a series called Orange from 2016 that perfectly portrays how a person struggles with depression and overcame it. Kakeru Naruse, a high schooler who, after transferring schools, chose to hang out after being invited by a group of friends instead of visiting his psychologically unstable mother at the hospital, which caused her to end herself while he was having fun. He blamed himself for his mother's death, thinking, had he not been so selfish in prioritizing his enjoyment, then his mother would still be alive today. Over time, he fell into a deep pit of depression, hating himself for simply existing, as the pain ate him up inside. But even so, he did not let it show. He kept smiling, while his friends had no idea of the things he had been going through. But every time someone gets too close to him, he pushed them away, thinking he was going to be a burden. And yet, when they tried to empathize with him, he lashed out, saying they know nothing of the pain he's going through. He kept swallowing the pain until he couldn't take it anymore. And he ended himself by riding his bike into a speeding truck because he wanted the feelings of depression to stop, leaving his friends to grieve. 10 years into the future, they found a way to send letters to the past of a different timeline by throwing letters onto the sea until it eventually ended up in the Bermuda Triangle, a place they believed where time travel was possible. So they wrote letters telling their young selves how to save Kakeru, hoping that it would erase the regret of not being able to save him in their timeline. But even with the letters, they had a hard time helping out Kakeru, because all throughout the anime, he acts like everything is fine, smiling and laughing, completely blending in with his friends. To an outsider, Kakeru would seem completely fine. When we think of depression, what comes to mind? We imagine someone who can never smile, who looks like they haven't slept for days, doesn't take care of themselves, and can never get out of their own rooms. We tend to attribute depression to the extreme end of the spectrum. But depression doesn't always look like this. It can also look like this. Think about it. When we hear victims of self-harming, why do we often hear relatives, friends, or family say, "We didn't saw the signs," or "We never thought he could do something like that"? It's because those of us struggling with self-harm might be hiding it intentionally. Not because we want to, but because we feel like we have to. We may have several reasons for hiding our pain, and it often depends on how we see ourselves. We might hide our true feelings because we don't want to burden our friends or family with our problems. We're afraid that if we overshare, they'll leave us because we burden them with our own troubles on top of the problems they currently have. We are afraid of being abandoned because who knows what will happen when we lose contact with the ones giving us a semblance of comfort, even if just a little. But at the very least, with this way of thinking, you acknowledge that you have a problem, that your pain and feelings are real. Because another reason why we hide our feelings is because of a bad memory, specifically opening up to the people you thought would understand you, but ended up laughing at your face. And for some of you out there, you don't even need to imagine what it's like, because it happened to you. And the most painful part about it is thinking that they cared, that you can show your vulnerable side to them, only to realize that they don't care. Because opening up feels like taking your heart out and expecting people not to stab it. There's a scene from the anime in the timeline where Kakeru died that mimics this situation. Weeks after Kakeru's mom's death, he hung out with his friends from his hometown. While they were catching up and laughing together, Kakeru mentioned his mom out of nowhere, saying that it's been tough and he's falling into a depressive state. Before this, he already had doubts, thinking twice if he was just going to keep it in or say it out loud, wondering if he would get laughed at if he did. But at the moment, it didn't matter because he had been holding this in for way too long now. He had to let someone know the pain he was feeling, and considering they were his longtime friends, he thought that they would understand. But his worst fears came true. They all laughed and thought it was a joke. Kakeru was extremely hurt. He made himself so vulnerable, and even if he was half expecting they just laugh, it didn't make it less painful for him. But because he couldn't just burst into tears here, he played along and said, "Yeah, it's a joke." From here, he started spiraling down, thinking that nobody cares. So to him, there's no point in telling people how he really feels, because he would look like a fool, a drama queen even. So he continued to seal his feelings inside of him, not even showing a hint of sadness in his face. What's sad about situations like Kakeru's is that your problems are being invalidated. And when everyone is telling you that you should just grow up, you're not a child, or you're incredibly sensitive and immature for someone your age, we start believing their words. The line between what's wrong and right starts to blur, because when everyone we open up to says the same things about us, then they must be right. Their words seep like poison into our minds until even our own judgment becomes unclear. What happens then is we never ever bring up our problems again, including problems that don't even have anything to do with our emotional state. It only takes a few or maybe even just one bad experience to generalize how people sees us and think that everyone we know and will meet will react the same way if we ever tell them how we feel. As with Kakeru, he thinks that his new friends would laugh at him the same way his old friends would. And the harsh truth about what Kakeru is doing is that he's making it harder for himself to get the help he needs. He wants people to understand him, but he's pushing his friends away at the same time, fearing he would get hurt again. By doing that, he makes his depression worse, while thinking, why wouldn't anyone help him? The question here is it his own fault or not? Is it really fair to blame people like Kakeru for pushing other people away? To be honest, I don't fully know the answer to that, but I used to struggle with this as well when I was younger. I still recall whenever someone tried to reach out to me and say, "Hey, let's be friends and hang out," I usually just thought, what if this is a prank? What if they're trying to use me? There is no way someone can be genuinely nice towards me when everyone's been the opposite. So I just say that I'm not available and carry on with my life. Thinking back, when I was able to get out of the dark hole I was in, I blamed myself for how I pushed them all away. Why couldn't I just accept their help? I thought. But as more time passed, and with the help of other people's perspective, I realized that it wasn't entirely my fault. Sure, there are some things I could have done, but how could I know that back then? It's not like I was born with the knowledge of handling situations like that. There was no way to know what I could have done. I learned to accept that I was inexperienced back then, and that some people are just bad. Not everyone is a good person, but that doesn't mean everyone is a bad person. So I guess I lean more towards believing that it's not entirely people's fault for pushing other people away. It's extremely complex, and it's definitely not a case of black and white that includes self-sabotage and defensive mechanisms. Even so, we can't deny that it's a self-destructive behavior, and it gets worse with other such behavior, like Kakeru continually masks his sadness with smiles and laughter. To most, laughing might be the only thing that's keeping them from screaming and crying. But still, it feels hollow whenever they do. Deep down, something tells you that you're only doing this to keep your sanity intact, while putting up a facade so that no one ever finds out what you feel, so that they can't judge you or prevent them from leaving if they get turned off by your real selves. And no matter how much quote-unquote fun you try to have, it just doesn't fill the hole that's inside you. As long as this problem inside you persists, it turns everything meaningless. Life, friends, goals, the future, it all feels so pointless. As I always say, it's like seeing the world without color, while everyone else appreciates the beauty of existing. You may start questioning, why do I even exist if my purpose is just to wake up every day and keep on hurting? That's what Kakeru thought as well. That living is painful, and it doesn't help when people tell him that it will eventually get better. But he had friends who helped him. I mentioned earlier how his friends received letters from themselves about how to save Kakeru, which made them realize that Kakeru wasn't fine. So throughout the show, they try their best to help him, give him fun memories, make him feel special, and show him that being close friends is exactly why they should be vulnerable with each other. But was it enough? The day came when, as indicated by the letters, Kakeru was on the verge of ending his life. He wandered off one night because he couldn't take it anymore. The group began panicking and frantically searching for him, struggling to find where he was. After a while, they spotted him on a sidewalk as a truck rapidly approached him, with everything ending in a flash of light. Or did it? In the midst of approaching death, Kakeru thought of his friends and wondered what would they feel if he disappeared. What would happen to the memories of their fun times together? Maybe tomorrow could bring more happiness as long as he was with them. That's when he realized he couldn't die yet. There were people willing to understand his pain through thick and thin. And those people were his friends. So he was able to step back and narrowly avoided death. And just like that, this group of friends changed his fated death, as he thanked him for saving his life. This whole scenario just goes to show that when things seem uncertain, when it feels like everyone is against you, when it feels like no one is there at your lowest, remember that amongst the endless ocean of people that puts you down, amidst the few are people who love you genuinely for who you are, people who stuck by your side and shared great memories with, people who enjoy simply being with you, people that kept you holding on to life until now, people that make you think that there's a tomorrow with them. Don't let negativity and depression make you forget what you have right now. People who appreciate you just for being you. Because when you're with them, doesn't it feel like the burden you have within your heart feels a little lighter? That even if you're putting up a front while you're with them, isn't there a tiny part of you that's glad that you have them in your life? So how can you truly be happy and have a genuine connection with them if you don't let them see the real you? If you keep running away, they will never have the chance to help you. Because believe me, it's not that they don't care about what you're going through. It's that they don't know what you're going through. If they really are people who cherish you, then they would listen to what you have to say. So push your doubts away and prepare to do the hardest thing you'll do in your life. To be completely vulnerable and to spill all the pain and suffering you're going through all this time. And while it may not completely fix all your problems, it's a step towards healing. As they say, a burden shared is a burden lessened. There's no need to hide anymore. Hey, if you made it this far, then thank you for giving me your time to listen to what I have to say. But just a reminder that if you're going through the things I mentioned, then it's really important to seek professional help. I know you've probably heard this a lot of times by now, but it's truly the best course of action if you hadn't done that already. But if you have and it didn't seem to work, then I hope this video helped you out in some way. You can also tell me how you feel with a comment. Like I said, there is no reason to hide anymore, right? Anyway, the tough part about this kind of struggle is if there literally is no one you can reach out to. If you are in such a situation, then I hope this next video of mine about loneliness and isolation will help you out. But that's it for this video, and I'll see you there.